So, I have painted the entire Dark Souls board game from start to finish, from the main board game set through all of the expansions and the Kickstarter exclusives. It has taken me an incredibly long time, long before I even started this YouTube channel, and I am so excited to finally have it all done. This is going to be focused entirely on the Dark Souls board game, showing you everything that you get with all of the expansions, all of the characters, all of the bosses, everything. So without further ado, let's take a deep dive into the entire Dark Souls board game.
And engage in jolly cooperation.
So let's kickstart with the Mega Boss expansions. First, we have Manus, Father of the Abyss expansion. One of the coolest bosses from Dark Souls 1 and definitely one of my favourites. The model design is really cool, they've captured the scale of him really well. I had a lot of fun painting this one and I'm pretty happy with how he turned out. You can check out the painting video in the link in the top right of the screen if you want to see it. I managed to get some glowing red eyes on his head, which I really like, and you can see as I spin him around that he's a pretty big boss, and he is one that I have completed with a full base as well. You know, awesome boss, awesome model, great design, and one of my favourites that I've painted so far. Next up, we have Black Dragon Calamite, another epic DLC boss from Dark Souls 1, and one of the more awesome dragon fights, I think. This model lives up to the reputation of this epic dragon and was actually the first mega boss that I painted and based well over a year ago now, and when I had just started painting the Dark Souls board game. It was actually one of the first ones that I did where I thought, hey, that's actually pretty cool. I 3D printed some broken pillars and rocks for the base and used some green flock for grass and some shrubs as well, just to kind of make that base look a bit more epic for the model. Next up, we have the Asylum Demon, aka Big Thick Cake Boss. Pretty cool looking model. It's a little small, I reckon, but you know, still packs a punch. I made this one a bit greener than the style in game because I just fancied a nice pop of colour onto the model and felt that the green added a nice amount of that. And now we have the boss with one of the best tracks in the series, Vaught of the Boreal Valley, another big butt boy. Now this guy was my first attempt at anything frosty on a miniature. I did the frosty base effect using some modelling paste, some snow powder, gel gloss along with a bunch of different blue paints. Really awesome model this one. I had a lot of fun painting it and doing these frost effects on him, and if you want you can see the whole painting walkthrough of Vaught on the link in the top right of the screen. Next we have another early days paint job of mine, the Last Giant from Dark Souls 2, a sad lonely fella who always made me feel pretty guilty about fighting him. Again, quite similar to Calamite, I used a bunch of 3D printed terrain for the base and used some green flock and shrubs to create this mossy look on the giant. I actually really liked how I painted this dude when I first did it, and then I put a bunch of like glossy shader on him and it really sort of toned it down and kind of ruined the paint job a bit for me, which is a bit sad, but I still like it for an early painting job, you know. Now, the second to last main Mega Boss expansion, it is the Executionist Chariot. Now, I'm actually yet to play this expansion, but it does come with a whole Colosseum map in which the chariot races around to kind of simulate the fight in the game, which I think is pretty cool. It comes with the actual chariot boss. The rider and horses are separate, so you can fight them in stages like you do in the game. And it also comes with some little gribbly enemies that you have to deal with as well. And this one I also have on my YouTube channel, and you can check out the full painting walkthrough if you want in the link in the top right. It wasn't the most exciting boss to paint, I'll be honest, but by the looks of the actual gameplay of this expansion, I think it will make up for it. Let me know in the comments if you've got this expansion and what your thoughts on playing it are. I'd really like to hear. Now, the last and my personal favourite main Mega Boss expansion, it is the Mammoth Mouth itself, the Gaping Dragon. I love this boss. The design is so grotesque. The introduction of this boss is so iconic as it emerges from the sewer. I loved painting this one. The enormous teeth protruding from the mouth, the sheer scale of it is so epic. It was also the perfect excuse to try out some saliva techniques, so that was really fun to do. You know, I just really enjoyed doing this one. But yeah, not a lot more I can say on this one other than I love it. Now, onto the Kickstarter exclusive expansions. I was actually fortunate enough to get my hands on these at a not so extortionate rate on eBay. So this one here is the Guardian Dragon expansion from Dark Souls 2. It was an interesting choice for a Kickstarter exclusive, I feel. If it was gonna have to be a dragon from Dark Souls 2, I'd have thought maybe the Ancient Dragon would have been a good one just for the sheer size of it. This Guardian Dragon was another early-ish kind of paint job of mine, and I think at that point I'd only really just kind of got the hang of like a good dry brushing technique. Again, not one of the most exciting ones that I've painted, but it gave me a really good challenge back in the day. Next up we have the Abyss Boys, the Four Kings. Again, this is an expansion that I've yet to try out, but it looks pretty cool. You get 4 of the Mad Bastards, and it seems to play out quite similarly to the game itself, which is pretty cool. You also get a massive Abyss map to play on, which is real nice. I am still tempted to try out different colours on these 4, but I'm still undecided on that yet. And now my favourite Kickstarter exclusive, the Old Iron King from Dark Souls 2. Not a hard fight in the game, but damn if he ain't epic. I put off painting this fella for so long, as I hadn't ever done any kind of like lava model or base before, so I was really cautious about ruining this model, but I decided to just bite the bullet, give it a go, and you know what, I'm pretty happy with how this guy turned out. I used a bunch of modelling paste for lava on the base, and I used some corkboard to create some jagged rocks around him as well. And yeah, I really like this boss. I think it's really cool. Now all the bosses are out the way, it's time to move on to the large expansions, the first one being the Dark Root expansion. This one comes with some of my favourite Souls characters. You get a bunch of enemies including the Ancient Guardians, the Scarecrows, the Demon Foliage, of course you get the adorable Mushroom Boys, and you get the 2 best buds ever, Sif and Artorias. This was a very early set that I bought and painted when I first started painting, and I went kinda overboard with the flocking on the characters. There's just so much green on them, and I haven't stuck it down too well, so this flocking just gets everywhere. I'll be doing a big Artorias print soon, so keep your eye out for that one. Next up, it's the Explorers expansion. Not the most exciting expansion, but it does give you a bunch of terrain models for the game, including barrels, chests, a bonfire, gravestones, and most importantly, mimics. I think the mimics are the best thing about this expansion. The Pursuer is crazy easy to beat, but the mimics add great dynamism and scare factor to the game and really up the difficulty. Now we have the Iron Keep expansion. This was the first expansion I bought, I think, so it would have to be some of the first minis I ever painted, long before I knew how to do any sort of like fire or glow effects on anything. But you get some really cool enemies in this from the Iron Keep in Dark Souls 2. You get the Smelter Demon, which is just such a cool boss. I had to really debate with myself whether I was going to do the blue Smelter Demon or the actual red one in the Iron Keep, and I decided to go with the Iron Keep one just to, you know, fit in with the rest of them. You get all the Elon Knights and you get the Iron Golems as well, and of course you get the Samurai Legend himself, Sir Elon. This is one of my favourite expansions to actually use when playing the game. Now we have the character expansion pack. You get a bunch of different and iconic armor sets and playable characters in this expansion. Nothing terribly exciting, but it does add a good dynamic range to the game, you know, including more loot, armor, characters to choose from, that sort of thing. This was the 3rd expansion I bought, I think, so again, pretty early day paint jobs here as well. You know, it's kind of nice to go back and see your old paints just to see how far you've come. And the last of the expansions is the Phantoms. You get a whole lot of minis in this one, ranging from good phantoms to evil invaders, from the iconic NPCs to the lesser known ones. It does add a different dynamic to the game, but I'll be honest, it's not one that I use that often unless I have a lot of time to play. Again, this was another one I had to debate with myself because I couldn't decide whether I was going to paint the invaders red or not, but I was convinced by some of my friends to just give them all individual paint jobs and make the bases red instead, which, you know, makes sense, and I'm kind of glad that I did it. Now, it's on to what started it all, the Dark Souls main set, the first miniatures I ever painted. I actually recently went back and repainted a whole new set of this and did a comparison between my first paint jobs to my new ones, and if you want to see that series, the link for it is in the top right of the screen now. So, let's take a look at these ones, shall we? You get a whole bunch of minis in this. You get the 4 main characters, you get several smaller enemies and larger enemies to fight, and a whole range of epic bosses, including the Winged Knight from Dark Souls 3, the Dark Souls 1 Bell Gargoyle, you get the Titanite Demon, Of course, you get the iconic duo Ornstein and Smaug, you get the amazing Dancer of the Boreal Valley, and finally you get the Outrider Knight. And that is the whole main set of the Dark Souls board game. Now it's on to the two latest releases, the two core sets, starting with the Bony Boys, the Tomb of Giants, one of the more widely hated areas of Dark Souls 1. These core expansions come with new rules, new encounter setups, and a lot of changes, which is really cool to see. They are also standalone sets, so you don't need any of the other sets in this board game to play them, which is really cool. So in this set, you get a whole load of skeleton boys, including the large skeleton soldiers and archers, smaller skeleton soldiers and archers as well, some necromancers, and the skeleton beast. Obviously, you get the king himself, Gravelord Nito, and the Black Knight, which is a mini-boss. I personally would have liked to see Pinwheel as a mini-boss, but, you know, I have my own Pinwheel printed and I will be painting him pretty soon. You also get 3 of the 6 expansion characters in this as well, which I literally painted this month. So it was actually kind of cool to compare the old character expansion models to these new ones that I did. But yeah, these models are really, really very cool, and I do really enjoy painting skeletons a lot, and this set did not disappoint. And last but certainly not least, the final box in the Dark Souls board game collection, and it is the second of the 2 core sets, the Painted World of Arayamus. This set comes with a wide range of enemies, including the Snow Rats, Crow Demons, Phalanx Hollows, you get the Engorged Hollows, Bonewheel Skeletons, Berenica Knight Mini-Boss, and of course you get Crossbreed Priscilla. And much like the Tomb of Giants set, you get the other 3 character expansion models with this set to play with. This is a really cool set of models, and it took me way longer to paint than the Tomb of Giants did, just because of the sheer wide range of differing enemies that you get with it. And that is the Dark Souls board game in its entirety, fully painted. And now, let's see it all together, shall we? Just look at that. That is ridiculous, isn't it? That is a lot of models, and a lot of paint, and a lot of time. I started painting miniatures a little over a year and a half ago now, and I finally have the completed set. To say I'm thrilled with it is an understatement, and it is certainly a really awesome milestone in my painting journey. From the good to the bad paint jobs, it's definitely a bookmark in my progression. And I guess all we have to do now is complete the Bloodborne board game, and then it's on to the Elden Ring board game in 2024. Cheers, guys.